Hey everyone, my name is Ashley Beard, and for those who do not know me, I am the Family and Consumer Science Agent with North Carolina Cooperative Extension in Yadkin County. And so in my position, my job is to bring information to the community in the world of health and nutrition, wellness, food safety, and food preservation. And so today we're going to be talking about one method of food preservation, and I'm going to be showing you how to make freezer jam. Now, freezer jam, if you've never made it before, it's pretty easy to do, pretty simple, doesn't have a lot of materials and supplies that you need, and it preserves that fresh fruit that you might have. And, if you've never water bath canned before, a lot of times jams and jellies are water bath canned so that they can be shelf stable. But if you've never water bath canned before, it might seem intimidating to you, because I know it seems intimidating to me when I first started doing it. If you've never done that, or you might not have the materials for water bath canning, then freezer jam is a really great alternative to water bath canning. So like it sounds, freezer jam, this is jam that will sit into the freezer. It's good for about 1 year in the freezer, and then if you're using it in the refrigerator, it's good for about 3 weeks. So to start off, like I said, you don't really need much to make this freezer jam at home. So we just need a few simple supplies. So we have a couple of measuring cups, a little potato masher. We have some freezer containers, and I'm going to talk to you about that, of what you want to look for when choosing a freezer container. And then we also, of course, we have our fresh fruit. I have strawberries. We have sugar, pectin, and then some water, and that's really all you need. And so I chose strawberries since they are in season, and you want to make sure you're choosing really great quality, bright, firm red ones. You want to discard the, brown, kind of ugly ones for the jam, because you want the best quality to go into the jam. You also want to make sure your freezer containers or jars are washed and sanitized. I just stuck mine into the dishwasher on a sanitizing little rotation, and we're good to go. So I have my fresh strawberries. I washed them under cool running water, and then I also took off the ends of them. And so the next step is we're going to mash these. So this is a good time to get the kids into the kitchen to do this. Whoop. And it can be kind of an arm workout. You can also stick this into the food processor to get it to the consistency that you want. So this might take some time. So I'm going to fast forward until it is all mashed. So we have all of our strawberries mashed up. And so like I said, if you want yours a little bit finer consistency, then I would suggest putting it into a food processor. Because doing it by hand, you're still going to get those kind of larger chunks with it. The recipe that I am following today is by the National Center for Home Food Preservation. If you've never checked out that website, I highly suggest it if you're wanting to try to get into food preservation, or if you're in the middle of preserving food at home, whether it be freezing, canning, drying, that kind of stuff, and a problem pops up, you can go to that website and kind of get that information to kind of troubleshoot what's going on at home. But like I said, it's a really great website, and it has so much information up there. But this recipe called for about 1 quart of berries, so that's what I have in here, and then 4 cups of sugar. So you want to make sure that whatever the recipe calls for with sugar, that you're putting that amount into it. The pectin that I'm using today, there's different types of it. This one calls for 4 cups of sugar as well. But there's also pectin that is made for jams and jellies that are for use in less or no sugar needed recipes, to where you can cut down on that sugar. You just want to make sure you're looking for that pink box if that's the choice you want to go with. But for today, I am just going to do the regular recipe. So I have these mashed up, and then I'm going to add 4 cups of sugar into this mixture and then stir it up and let it sit for 20 minutes. So let me do that. Just going to mix it up. So I chose strawberries since they are in season, and if you're looking for fresh strawberries near you or just fresh local produce, if you've never heard of the Visit NC Farms app, you should download that into your Google Play or your Apple Store, and that is a really awesome app that's in North Carolina, and it features local businesses in the counties, and it connects you to those local farmers that could be in your community. We have some local Yadkin farmers and businesses up on the app, and there you can find the hours that they're open, their location, and some other what they have at the moment, details. So again, that's the Visit NC Farms app that you can download to find local farms and businesses near you that would carry fresh strawberries and other local goodness. Okay, so we have this, and we're gonna let this sit for 20 minutes, and while I do that, I'm gonna clean up a little bit, and then we will resume when we're about to start boiling the pectin for the mixture. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and bring our pectin and water to a boil. The pectin is what makes the fruit become that gel-like consistency. And so it's a really important part of getting that end product that we want. So with the freezer jam, we have the fruit, we have the sugar. The sugar also helps with the gel formation, but it also is a preserver because it prevents the growth of microorganisms. And then combined with the pectin, that's when we get that gel jam-like consistency that we're all familiar with. So I have a cup of water, that's what the recipe calls for, and I'm going to bring this up to a boil with the packet of pectin. You just want it to make sure the pectin is dissolved in the water. And our kind of fruit sugar mixture, it still has 20 minutes still has a couple more minutes to get to that 20 minutes, but you just want to stir occasionally. This mixture, it already smells so great. And again, you just want to get this mixture up to a boil and let it boil for a minute. So while that is getting up to a boil, we'll talk about the types of containers that you want to use. Since we're going to be putting them in the freezer, you do want that airtight, rigid container for the jam. You know, freezer bags are great, but I don't think I would want to put my jam into a freezer bag. I just don't think that would just frustrate me way more. So I have these little ball freezer containers. You could also use mason jars. However, just make sure your mason jar is a dual jar to where it supports both freezing and canning techniques. So those, you can use that as well, or these containers. Anything that's will keep that air out. Okay. Turn that up just a little bit. And you can make this freezer jam with a lot of other berries too. So like blueberries, blackberries. Within this Sure-Jell pectin package, there's also some really great recipes for some other berries. So this works with what you might have on hand or the season that we're in. Okay, so this is getting up to a boil now, and you want it to boil for a minute. But you wanna watch it, just stir it occasionally. So that's boiling for a minute. Once this has boiled for a minute, we're gonna pour it straight into our strawberry sugar mixture that we have right here, and then we're gonna put it right into the jars. Now when putting it into the jars, you wanna make sure you leave about a ½ inch of headspace. And when I say headspace, I mean that it is a ½ inch from the top of the container. This one's really great because it has a max line on the container already. And so I don't have to necessarily measure it out. If you already preserve food at home, you might already have a headspace tool that has a ½ inch already marked. Or if you don't have one of those head inch tools, you can take a knife and then you can measure out a ½ inch, and then I took a piece of tape and then just kind of measured it, kind of marked it right there, and that can be your ½ inch measurement. So this is right at where we want it to be, and I'm about to pour this right into our mixture. And then once we pour it in, and once we already mix it in, we want to make sure that we pour it straight into those containers. That's why we need to make sure we already have everything prepped beforehand. So that way we're not, all over the place trying to get. So just carefully mix this together. And it's gonna look like, very liquidy mixture, but that's okay, that's what we want. It's not gonna be a gel form right away. We're just gonna stir this for 2 minutes. But so after we pour these into the containers and we wipe off anything that might have spilled on the sides of them, and then we seal them, we're actually going to let them sit for 24 hours at room temperature. And what that is allowing is that allows that pectin, all the sugar to work together to make that gel consistency that we want. However, if at 24 hours it's still really liquidy, just go ahead and freeze it. If you leave it out even longer than 24 hours, that's where we're gonna see that microorganism mold growth that we don't want. And so you want to just go ahead and freeze it. And you can use a ladle, a big spoon, to pour it in there. If you are using a mason jar that allows freezing, or it supports freezing, you can use a little funnel to funnel it in there so it's not as messy. I don't mind mess. I make a lot of messes when I bake and when I cook. Just something that I'm used to. It doesn't really bother me. But if messes bother you, just take all the precautions that you might want to take. Yeah, so we still have those kind of larger chunks of strawberries. I don't mind that, but at that step of when we were mashing it, just putting it into a food processor or a blender to finer consistency, you might prefer that a little bit more. Okay. I am going to take my ladle and just ladle them into the container. This recipe makes about 5 to 6 containers of those half pint jars. And I'm not going to use my Headspace tool since mine already has that max line right at the top. So I'm just going to ladle it in. And this is a really awesome recipe to get the kids into the kitchen, a really great way to get them to learn more about preserving foods, because we don't want food waste. And this is a really simple way that you can do it at home. If you don't know how to do water bath canning, or you don't have the needed supplies for water bath canning. If you're interested in learning more about food preservation techniques, such as pressure canning, water bath canning, freezing, check with your local cooperative extension offices. A lot of times they will have programs or know of some classes that you could take to learn a little bit more about it if you want to get more into preserving food at home. And we want that headspace because in the freezer things will expand. That's just their natural tendency. So we're right at about 5 containers, which is perfect. Add into there. And then we just want to make sure we grab a little dish towel, and we just want to wipe off anything that got around the edges. We don't want anything that will prevent from those lids from properly closing and keeping that air out while in the freezer. Oh, and I stuck that right into it. Okay, just gonna put the lids on, and again, this is gonna sit out at room temperature for 24 hours, and then after 24 hours, if it's at that consistency, go ahead and put it in the freezer. Well, regardless if it's at that consistency, go ahead and put it in the freezer because we don't want any mold growth on it. And then, I know I said it at the beginning of the video, but this will keep in the freezer for about a year. And then once you want to use it, just bring it out and thaw it in the refrigerator, and you want to use it within a couple of days to a week for the best quality. It's a good idea to also label them. You can just take a piece of tape and then with a Sharpie label it up there, just so you know when you made the jam. I hope you learned some about freezer jam. I hope you'll try it at home with whatever berries that you have on hand. And I hope you'll get to enjoy some strawberries in season. Bye guys. Let me know if you have any questions.